The last thing I expected at 60 was to feel his hands brush against mine as he passed me the whiskey, or the way my pulse roared louder than the snowstorm outside. But when Gilbert smiled, slow, knowing, like he had already mapped every secret I had buried, I knew I had crossed a line there would be no coming back from. Before we dive in, I want to thank each of you, new viewers and loyal subscribers, for being here. Your support fuels this channel, and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, I can't wait to welcome you into this community. Now, let's begin. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. My name is Eva Garner. For 6 years, I've lived alone in a cedar-shingled cottage on the edge of Algonquin Park, where the only voices are the loons on the lake and the crackle of my late husband's old records. Loneliness, I had decided, was a fair trade for peace. Then Gilbert arrived. He was my nephew by marriage, 40, tousled dark hair, with a laugh that filled rooms. "Aunt Eva," he had said at the door, snow dusting his shoulders, "hope you don't mind me crashing your fortress of solitude." His grin was disarming. Too disarming. That first night, we drank bourbon by the fire. He told me about his divorce, his voice raw. Clara said I was distant. Maybe she was right. His knee brushed mine. I pulled away. "You're young," I said stiffly. "You'll rebuild." "And you?" His gaze lingered. "When do you get to rebuild?" The question hung like smoke. Later, as I washed dishes, he appeared beside me, drying a plate. Our fingers grazed. "Sorry," he muttered, but didn't move. The air thickened. "Gilbert, you're not really my aunt, you know." His voice dropped. "Just a stranger who shares my dead uncle's name." I froze. He was right, no blood relation. Just a technicality. A dangerous technicality. When the power went out that night, he insisted I take his bed. "He'll sleep on the couch." But at 2 a.m., I found him shivering by the embers. "Come here," I said, tossing him a blanket. He caught my wrist instead. The fireplace hissed. The fire had died to a faint glow, but the heat between us might as well have been a living thing. Gilbert's grip on my wrist tightened, not enough to hurt, but enough to make my breath hitch. Outside, the wind screamed like it knew what we were about to do. "Gilbert," I said, my voice trembling.
"This isn't right." "Why?"
His thumb traced the jut of my wrist bone. "Because someone decided right for you 30 years ago?" The mention of my marriage, his uncle's marriage, sent a shock through me. I yanked my hand back, but he stepped closer, his chest nearly brushing mine. The scent of bourbon and wood smoke clung to him. "You've been alone too long," he said, softer now. "So have I." I wanted to slap him. I wanted to kiss him. Instead, I stood paralyzed as he cupped my face, his calloused palms rough against skin softened by age. When his lips met mine, it wasn't gentle. It was a claim. Later, tangled in his sweat-damp sheets, guilt pooled in my stomach like lead. Gilbert slept beside me, one arm thrown possessively over my waist. Moonlight sliced through the blinds, illuminating the framed photo on the dresser. My wedding day, Robert's hands on my shoulders. "I'm sorry," I mouthed to the ghost. But Robert didn't answer. Gilbert did. "Regretting it already?" he murmured, stirring awake. His fingers trailed down my spine. I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest. "This can't happen again." He propped himself on an elbow, smirk sharp. "You said that an hour ago, too." The crack of my palm against his cheek echoed. He laughed, low and bitter. Classic Eva. Punish yourself for wanting something. For once. I fled to the kitchen, my robe cinched tight. Dawn bled through the windows, the storm now a brittle quiet. That's when I saw it, a crumpled envelope on the counter, addressed to Gilbert in looping feminine script. Clara, the return label read. His ex-wife. Inside, a single line. You'll never change. Stay away from her. Her. The floor tilted. How many hers had there been? When Gilbert found me, letter in hand, his smirk vanished. That's not what it looks like. Really? My laugh cracked. Because it looks like you've done this before. Ruined things.
People.
He reached for me. Eva. Was I just another conquest? The words tore out of me. Another lonely woman to manipulate? His jaw twitched. You think I'd chase you for sport? At 40? Then why? For the first time, he looked uncertain. Because you're the first person who sees me. Not the fuck up. Not the black sheep.
Just me.
The raw ache in his voice undid me. Against every screaming instinct, I let him pull me back to bed. But as we moved together, desperate and quiet, I memorized the exact shade of dawn light on the walls. I knew, even then, this would be the last time I would let myself believe him. The nausea hit me like a freight train. I barely made it to the bathroom before my knees buckled, my body heaving over the sink. When the retching stopped, I stared at my reflection. Pale, haunted, old. Menopause had come and gone a decade ago. This wasn't possible. But the test strip didn't lie. 2 pink lines. I sank to the floor, the cold tiles biting through my nightgown. 60 years old. Widowed. Pregnant by my dead husband's nephew. The math clawed at me. Gilbert's visit 6 weeks ago. The reckless nights after. My hands shook as I crammed the test into the trash, burying it under wads of tissue. That's when I saw it. Taped beneath the bathroom sink, yellowed with age, an envelope labeled for Eva in Robert's slanted script. My heart stalled. I had cleaned this cottage 100 times. How had I never noticed? The letter inside was dated 3 days before his death. Eva, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and the guilt finally killed me. Gilbert isn't just your nephew.
He's my son.
I had an affair with his mother, Lena, years before we met. She never told him. I couldn't either. Forgive me. The words blurred. Robert's voice, steady and kind in my memory, now curdled into a stranger's. Gilbert, his son. My stomach lurched again. I had slept with my husband's child, my stepson. Gilbert found me on the porch hours later, the letter crumpled in my fist. He held 2 mugs of coffee, his smile fading when he saw my face. Aunt Eva? You okay? Don't call me that. My voice was ice. You knew, didn't you? Knew what? I thrust the letter at him. His eyes scanned the page, his tan leaching to gray. This is bullshit. But his trembling hands betrayed him. You knew, I hissed. All those times you called me Aunt Eva. Was it some sick joke? A game? No. I swear I didn't. He raked a hand through his hair, wild-eyed. Clara. She hinted once that Dad wasn't mine. I thought she was just trying to hurt me. So, you slept with me to get back at Robert? The coffee mug shattered as I shoved him. Am I just your twisted revenge? He grabbed my wrists. You think I wanted this? To fall for my own father's wife. His laugh was jagged. You're the only family I've got left. The only person who doesn't look at me like I'm broken. I wrenched free. Get out. Eva, please. Get out. He left, tires spitting gravel. But as his truck vanished down the road, I pressed a hand to my stomach. The truth was inescapable now. Robert's blood ran in Gilbert's veins. And in mine, a child that should never exist. Clara arrived at dusk, her SUV idling in the driveway like a predator. I opened the door before she could knock, my body humming with a grim clarity. She looked older than the photos, sharp cheekbones, eyes like flint. So you're the reason he's been ignoring my calls, she said, pushing past me. The air curdled. Get out. Or what? She spun, waving Gilbert's forgotten scarf, my scarf, in her fist. You'll burn me too? What are you talking about?
This.
She hurled a stack of papers at me. Divorce records, bank statements, and a photo of Gilbert, shirtless, asleep in her bed years ago. He's a parasite. Feeds on women like you, lonely, grieving, easy. I recoiled. You're lying. Am I? She lit a cigarette, her hand trembling. Ask him about the fire he started at my sister's cabin. Ask him why he really came here. The floor tilted. What fire? The one that killed her cat. The one he called an accident. She blew smoke in my face. He doesn't love you. He loves destroying you. I lunged for her, knocking over a lamp. It shattered, the bulb sparking against the rug. Flames licked up the curtains. You bitch. Clara screamed, stamping at the fire. But the dry timber walls caught fast, smoke choking the room. I stumbled to the bedroom, grabbing Robert's photo and the pregnancy test. Embers rained from the ceiling as Clara's shouts turned to coughing. Eva, help me. I froze in the hallway. The flames framed her like a portrait, her hatred melting into terror. For a heartbeat, I saw Gilbert in her eyes. Then I ran. Outside, the cold air seared my lungs. The cottage roared behind me, an inferno devouring memories, lies, and the life inside me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Tires screeched. Gilbert leaped from his truck, face blanched. Eva. Jesus. I backed away. Did you burn her sister's cabin? He froze. It was an accident. I didn't mean to. Just like this? I gestured to the flames. Or was I supposed to be your next accident?
No.
I came back to warn you about Clara. She's unhinged. You brought her here. I slapped him, my ring splitting his lip. You knew she would come. You wanted us to destroy each other. He gripped my shoulders. I wanted you. Only you. The roof collapsed with a groan, sparks spiraling into the night. Somewhere in the smoke, Clara's screams fell silent. Gilbert pulled me toward his truck. We have to go.
Now.
I wrenched free. We're done. You'll die out here. I'm already dead. I turned toward the woods, the test strip clutched in my palm. 2 lines. 1 choice. The last thing I heard was his broken howl as the sirens swallowed him whole. I lost the baby in a clinic north of Thunder Bay, surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptic and the muffled sobs of strangers. The nurse called it a missed miscarriage. I called it mercy. Robert's bloodline died with me that day, and I buried the guilt in a pauper's graveyard under a fake name. But the dead don't stay buried. 6 months later, a lawyer tracked me to a rented room in Sudbury. Eva Garner? He slid an envelope across the table. From your husband's estate. A contingency. Inside, a deed to a lakeside property in Robert's name, purchased weeks before he died. A note in his handwriting. For the family I failed. The cabin stood empty, dust motes swirling in the light. On the kitchen counter, another envelope. This one from Gilbert. Eva. I found Clara's journal. She lied. The fire at her sister's cabin? She started it. Framed me. I was trying to save that damn cat. Am not the monster you think I am. But I'll leave you alone if that's what you want. Just know I loved you. Still do.
Gee.
I burned the letter. Then I planted lilacs where the ashes fell. He came at dawn on the first day of spring, truck rumbling up the gravel drive. I watched from the window as he stepped out, thinner now, his face shadowed by a beard. He didn't knock, just left a cardboard box on the porch. Inside, my old photo albums, Robert's watch, and a stuffed loon from the cottage. Beneath it all, a sonogram. Our sonogram. I found him sitting on the dock, skipping stones across the water.
You kept it, I said.
I wanted to remember, he replied, not looking up. Even if you didn't. The loons called, their cries slicing the silence. When he finally met my gaze, I saw the boy Robert abandoned, not the man who had burned my world down. Stay, I said, the word tasting like forgiveness. For coffee. He hesitated, then nodded. We didn't touch.
Didn't speak of the past.
But as the sun rose, warming the scars on our hands, I wondered if redemption could ever taste as sweet as ruin. Thank you for joining me on this raw, twisted journey of love, betrayal, and the ghosts we carry. If this story gripped you, please let me know in the comments. What would you have done in Eva's place? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales that claw at the shadows of the heart. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time, keep wondering what lies beneath the surface.